Welcome back. Top security officials from Seoul, Washington and Tokyo recently met in Hawaii to coordinate a joint response to future nuclear provocations, that is, by Pyongyang. For more on this, I have Professor MIN Jeong-hun at the Korea National Diplomatic Academy live on the line. Professor Min, it's good to have you back.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I also have Doctor Stephen Noerper at Asia Dialogue live on the line as well. Dr. Noerper, it's been a while. Welcome back.
Thank you, Sunny. Great to see you again.
Right. Professor Min, we'll start with you. Following the trilateral talks over in Hawaii, National Security Advisor Kim Sung-han told reporters that there would be no soft response in the event of a seventh nuclear test by North Korea. Professor Min, what response might he be talking about?
Yes, as you mentioned a moment ago, recently the national security advisors of the three countries met in Hawaii to discuss North Korea economic security and the major regional issues. And it was the first meeting among the security advisors since the beginning of the new South Korean government. And regarding North Korea, it is reported that the three countries agreed to further strengthen cooperation to maintain the peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula. And they also agreed to take strong measures against North Korea if it conducts a nuclear test. And they stressed that North Korea's seventh nuclear test would not be received as just one more nuclear test, and the three countries would maximize their joint efforts together with the international community to make sure that North Korea would fully recognize that it made a wrong decision. And they also mentioned that the reactions of the three countries will be certainly different this time. So it is expected that if North Korea conducts another nuclear test, the three countries will strongly condemn its reckless decision, and they will make active diplomatic efforts to receive support from the international community against North Korea's wrong decision. And based on their support from the international community, they will try to impose stronger UN Security Council sanctions against North Korea. Of course, South Korea and US will respond to the North Korea's nuclear provocation by strengthening their military cooperation, like shooting missiles and deploying strategic assets to the Korean Peninsula in order to demonstrate that they have enough military capabilities to completely destroy North Korea's nuclear facilities and military bases.
Right. Dr. Noerper, staying with that then, do tell us a bit, for the sake of comparison, of course, do tell us a bit about the past responses that we've had to nuclear tests by North Korea.
Certainly, Sunny. Well, there has been a response to every nuclear test since the first in 2006. The sanction regime has tightened notably, and was especially the case 5 to 3 years ago after the fourth nuclear test, which happened to have been the resolution co-sponsored by the United States and China. Things became very tight around North Korea. And those increased sanctions seem to have made a difference and may have contributed to North Korea coming to the table in 2018. They were probably surprised at that unanimity. Now things are different. The U.S.-China discord means that North Korea knows it will be hard for the United States in the Security Council to have the same type of resolve, especially as Russia and China have argued for sanctions relief. And now that Russia, with the Ukraine invasion, and China, with its approach on Taiwan, stands in very stark contrast to the United States. So it will be interesting to see what type of response would take place. I've argued through the year that it is not in North Korea's interest to test. So far, they have not. They're coming out of the COVID lockdown. They may be looking at China and the fact that in October there is a party Congress meeting, conscious not to embarrass Xi next door, and perhaps are being wary and waiting to hear what this audacious initiative might mean for them in terms of providing pragmatic support for North Korea's development. So there are a lot of reasons not to test. If they do, we do pass a dangerous threshold, which is the seventh test. India and Pakistan have tested only 6 times. So this would be a dramatic mark in terms of the challenge, both to the Korean Peninsula as well as to the non-proliferation regime.
Right. And Professor Min, expanding on what Dr. Noerper has just said, do you believe a seventh nuclear test is indeed on the horizon? And if so, what does North Korea look to gain from it?
Well, it is reported that the international authorities in Seoul and Washington assess that North Korea is ready to conduct another nuclear test. So it's not surprising that the seventh nuclear test will take place anytime soon. And I think that only thing left is Kim Jong-un's decision, and his decision will be based on North Korea's domestic political considerations and its calculations on the relations with US and South Korea. And militarily speaking, regarding the seventh nuclear test, it seems that North Korea want to make technological advancements in its nuclear capabilities to put tactical nuclear warheads on the short-range ballistic missiles. And enhancing its short-range ballistic missile capabilities with the tactical nuclear warheads, target militarily its neighboring countries like South Korea and Japan, not the United States. So it shows that the main purpose of conducting another nuclear test is to enhancing North Korea's military capabilities against South Korea and Japan. Meanwhile, I also think North Korea will try to enhance its military capabilities against the United States through improving its ICBM capabilities. It means that there is a probability that it will have another ICBM test after conducting the seventh nuclear test in order to increase its bargaining power on US before it comes back to the nuclear talks with Washington.
Right, I see. Dr. Noerper, recently speaking to the Associated Press, South Korea's Vice Defense Minister Shin Pom-chol claimed China and Russia hold the key to North Korea's denuclearization. Do you share this view?
I'd say they hold a key, and they certainly have influence. They have the ability to explain to North Korea what the implications will be. However, they are both distracted. Again, China on the Taiwan issue and Russia on the Ukraine issue, where both face a good deal of international opposition, and certainly that of the United States. So they play a key role in terms of having good relations. North Korea has recognized the Donetsk republics, which has pleased Russia. And Russia does not have many friends now. If you remember the first resolution in the General Assembly, only 4 states voted with Russia. As Russia was widely condemned on the Ukraine invasion. And so, China too being absorbed with the Party Congress, the further consolidation, and Xi Jinping moving toward a third term as president, they have the ability to influence North Korea. They also have a lot of inward concerns and their own respective concerns and distractions with the United States, with the European Union, and others. So it'll be interesting to see. Also, North Korea is famously nationalistic. And so to think that China and Russia have the only key is a mistake, because if we buy Professor Min's adroit analysis just a moment ago, Kim Jong-un is listening to his technological advisors. He's listening to the scientists if his rationale is to test again. And they will do that for North Korean pride. They will do that in terms of regime security, stability, and popularity, and the narrative which they convey to the North Korean people. And so China and Russia have large influence. They have the potential to help educate North Korea forward on issues of demilitarization and the seriousness of the challenge of nuclearization. And China and Russia have stated support for denuclearization. But I'd say it's one key among several.
Right, and staying with China and Russia, Professor Min, some pundits claim that these two allies of North Korea may not welcome a nuclear test at this particular point. What are your thoughts?
Yes, personally, I agree with their perception that China and Russia do not welcome North Korea's another nuclear test. I think it's because North Korea's nuclear test is a truly hard-ish to make China and Russia embarrassed and to make them difficult to defend North Korea in the international community. The international community perceives North Korea's nuclear capability as a serious security threat because it could cause devastating consequences if it spreads out to the world. So most countries have clear positions against North Korea's nuclear threats, and they are supportive of imposing UN sanctions against North Korea when it conducts a nuclear test. So if North Korea conducts another nuclear test, the international community will strongly support imposing UN sanctions against North Korea, and such a situation will put China and Russia in a difficult situation because they needed to defend North Korea in the international stage. And as you know, since US-China strategic competition intensifies and Ukraine war continues, China and Russia need to preserve and mobilize their friends and partners to support their positions in the international stage. So I think China and Russia want to keep North Korea as their close friend and ally, but North Korea's nuclear test can put them in an embarrassing situation and make them hard to defend their ally in the international stage. So personally, I think these situations suggest that there could be nothing that China and Russia could get out of North Korea's nuclear test. So I don't see any reason why the China and Russia would welcome the North Korea's another nuclear test. Instead, it will be there like a headache.
Right. And beyond nuclear provocations, Dr. Noerper, a recent report by the RAND Corporation and the ASEAN Institute for Policy Studies has renewed concern over North Korea's chemical weapons and cyber capabilities. How do you evaluate these particular threats?
Well, I think they're significant. I mean, we've known for some time that North Korea derives a great deal of income off of cybercrime. We also know that it has actively had, since the Korean War, a chemical and biological weapons development program. But look, those are just two factors. We're concerned about their conventional capabilities, their short-range missile testing, and what that means for Seoul, and as Professor Min has mentioned, what that means for Tokyo as well. So there are a plethora of issues, a range of issues that need to be negotiated. And what this means to us is that we need to be back at a negotiating table. It's not just a time to sit back and register where North Korea is and simply wait for tests, but to prepare for further negotiation to discuss a number of issues. Those are the range of security issues, human rights issues, but also North Korea's development concerns. And things like the typhoon remind us that there's a common challenge, North and South, to things like climate change and catastrophic weather conditions. North Korea is interested in that. They're interested in space, which is an area where South Korea excelled. So there is a very thick menu that they may sit down with and go through, and that will lead to more productive analysis on issues like this, chemical and cyber, as well as nuclear and other conventional weapons.
Right. Professor Min, starting tomorrow, that would be Tuesday here in South Korea, until this Thursday, the Seoul Defense Dialogue takes place here in the capital city. Now, this is the first in-person meeting since 2019. What do you believe are the implications of this annual security forum, especially amid tensions here on the Korean Peninsula?
Basically, I think it's a good starting point to talk about the nuclear North Korean problems in the coming years. As you mentioned, the 2022 Seoul Defense Forum will take place in Seoul this week, and it will deal with major security issues surrounding the Korean Peninsula and the Indo-Pacific region. And one of the sessions is about the international cooperation and the approaches for complete denuclearization of North Korea. And as we know, North Korea's nuclear problem becomes more complex and each threat becomes more advanced. But it seems difficult to make the international cooperation for the denuclearization of North Korea. Specifically, North Korea has got a growing number of ballistic missile provocations and increasing nuclear testing threat, but China and Russia continue to veto additional US sanctions against North Korea. In addition, North Korea has posed another threat that implies the first use of nuclear weapons if it seems to be necessary politically or militarily. So it should be welcomed to have the Security Forum to draw international community's attention and discuss how we can make progress to resolve North Korean problems. So I hope that the forum could be a useful starting point to make a consistent effort to deal with the North Korean problems in the coming years.
Right, and staying with such efforts, Dr. Noerper, following security talks back in Hawaii, we have officials from South Korea, the US and Japan planning to meet in Tokyo this coming Wednesday, that would be September 7th. Do you see these interactions as perhaps serving to discourage further provocations by Pyongyang, or do they seek to perhaps, or serve to that is, perhaps aggravate the standoff here on the peninsula?
Well, it has the potential to do both, but I think the clarion call is for better coordination. We have a unique opportunity now because it has been almost 2 decades since we have seen the governments of Japan, South Korea, and the United States poised together in such a way. And that's interesting, important, and a departure from the recent past. Clearly, there's an opportunity for them to enhance coordination and cooperation when it comes to North Korea and other concerns, such as China, which are less overtly discussed in the media. I sit in Hawaii, and so it was good to see National Security Advisor Kim Sung-han here meeting with Jake Sullivan, meeting with National Security Advisor Takeo, and trying to move forward in the space of a day and a half that agenda. The fact that it's followed on so rapidly by other talented individuals, the shuttle diplomacy between Seoul and Tokyo is very, very important. Not least of the reason is to diversify supply chains, provide economic opportunities for both South Korea and Japan coming out of the pandemic era, and to counter some of the economic concerns. This is a natural economic territory. It's one where there's positive reinforcement, common democratic values, and so it behooves us to think about creative ways for South Korea and Japan to reconcile and move forward in the interest of their peoples for the cause of jobs and other economic enhancements.
Right, and staying with that, Professor Min, very briefly speaking, what is your assessment of the Yoon administration's North Korea policy thus far?
Yes, the Yoon government adopts the principle of North Korea policy and pursues the complete and verifiable denuclearization of North Korea based on the rule of mutual reciprocity. And the Yoon government has been focused on strengthening its cooperation with the United States to deal with the North Korean problems. And I think they have been working close together to deal with the North Korean problems so far. But in terms of the focusing on the working together with the United States and the strengthening ROK-US alliance, it's a little bit that takes time before they move forward in terms of resuming talks with North Korea. So I hope that I would see the better situation in terms of resuming nuclear talks between North Korea and the United States in the coming months and years.
Right, hopefully in the near future then. All right, Professor Min over in the US, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts. And Dr. Noerper over in Hawaii, thank you very much for your insights today.
Thank you, Sunny.